When people talk about power and influence in Africa, the same old names always come up: the United States, China, maybe France. But quietly, almost under the radar, a new player has been reshaping the continent's story. Not with military bases or sanctions, but with knowledge, technology, and respect. That player is India. And nowhere is that more visible than in the tiny West African nation of Benin Republic, a country that has shocked analysts and world powers alike by becoming Africa's #1 cotton producer. Yes, Benin, not Egypt, not Nigeria, not Mali, Benin. And behind that success lies a strategic partnership that even Washington didn't see coming. This is the untold story of how India helped Benin Republic overtake Africa's cotton market, while the USA watched in shock. It's a story of quiet diplomacy, patient investment, and a friendship rooted in shared struggles and common dreams. For decades, the United States positioned itself as Africa's development partner. Through initiatives like USAID and AGOA, Washington promised economic opportunities. But too often, those opportunities came with strings attached: political conditions, trade limitations, or one-sided agreements that favored American corporations. India, on the other hand, came in with a different energy. It didn't lecture. It listened. It didn't treat Africa as a charity case. It treated Africa as an equal. When Indian investors first landed in Cotonou, Benin's bustling port city, they didn't arrive in convoys of armored SUVs or with grand speeches about democracy. They arrived with seeds, machines, and partnership proposals. Their goal was simple: help Benin unlock its own potential. Now, Benin had always grown cotton, the white gold of West Africa. But most of it was exported raw. Western buyers took the cotton, processed it abroad, and sold it back as expensive fabric or clothing. Benin earned pennies while others earned fortunes. It was a cycle of dependency. India saw that problem because India once lived it too. After all, during colonial times, Indian cotton fueled British textile mills while Indian farmers stayed poor. India understood the pain of producing raw materials for someone else's wealth. So when it looked at Benin, it didn't see a customer. It saw a partner in transformation. Indian engineers and agricultural experts got to work. They helped modernize Benin's ginning factories, introduced efficient irrigation systems suited for dry climates, and shared hybrid cotton seeds that increased yield and resisted pests. At first, local farmers were skeptical. Why would India care about our cotton? They asked. But when yields doubled and income tripled, word spread fast. Villages that once relied on outdated tools suddenly had access to Indian-made machinery designed specifically for smallholder farms. And India didn't stop there. It offered scholarships to Beninese students to study textile engineering and agribusiness in New Delhi, Mumbai, and Ahmedabad. These young professionals returned home equipped with new skills and contacts, eager to build a modern cotton industry in their homeland. Soon, Indian companies began partnering with Beninese cooperatives to process cotton locally, spinning, weaving, and even manufacturing fabric within the country. That one shift changed everything. Benin was no longer just an exporter of raw cotton. It was becoming a producer of finished goods. Meanwhile, the U.S. was watching and, honestly, not quite understanding what was happening. For decades, America's relationship with Africa was transactional: buy resources, sell finished products, and maintain influence through aid programs. But India's approach was transformational, not transactional. By 2023, Benin's cotton output had surged beyond all expectations. Reports from the International Cotton Advisory Committee confirmed it. Benin had overtaken Burkina Faso and Mali to become Africa's leading cotton producer. Analysts in Washington called it a statistical surprise. But in New Delhi, it was no surprise at all. It was the result of years of consistent collaboration. India didn't just provide tools. It shared a mindset, one that said, "We can create value here, not just abroad." That idea resonated deeply across Africa, where countries have grown tired of exporting raw materials and importing poverty. The partnership blossomed. Benin's exports to India expanded not only in cotton, but also in cashew nuts, soybeans, and textiles. Indian banks opened representative offices in Cotonou to facilitate smoother trade. In turn, Indian textile companies found in Benin a reliable source of high-quality cotton, free from political instability or trade wars. At global trade summits, Benin started appearing alongside India as an example of South-South cooperation, nations of the developing world rising together instead of competing. Now, here's what makes the story even more fascinating. While India was helping Benin grow, it was also reducing its own dependency on U.S. and Chinese cotton imports. This was strategic genius, a win-win that strengthened both economies. The United States, accustomed to being Africa's go-to partner, began to feel the pressure. U.S. textile importers noticed that Indian fabrics sourced from African cotton were now dominating global markets, cheaper, better quality, and free from geopolitical drama. Behind closed doors, American analysts started calling India's rise in Africa a silent coup. It wasn't about military power or diplomacy. It was about development diplomacy, building loyalty through prosperity. And honestly, that's what Africa had been waiting for. A partner who believes that growth doesn't need to come with conditions. Benin's president publicly praised India, calling it a friend that teaches you how to fish, not one that just gives you the fish. That single quote went viral across West Africa. It captured what many African leaders felt, that India's model was more sustainable, more respectful, and more effective than decades of Western aid programs. Let's be real, cotton is more than just a crop. It's a symbol of industrialization. Every shirt, every bedsheet, every textile factory begins with a farmer growing cotton. When you control that foundation, you control a huge slice of global trade. So when Benin became #1 in Africa, it wasn't just an agricultural victory. It was a geopolitical one. It showed that Africa could lead, not follow. And India was right there, guiding that transformation. The U.S., meanwhile, faced a dilemma. How could it compete with a model based on equality rather than dominance? How could it regain influence in a region that no longer needed saving, but partnership? By 2025, joint India-Benin ventures had built multiple spinning and weaving plants across the country. Thousands of jobs were created. Rural poverty rates dropped. Women's cooperatives began running their own textile micro-industries, supplying local markets, and even exporting handmade fabrics. Benin's GDP growth, once modest, started catching the eye of economists. The IMF noted that the cotton sector alone contributed significantly to the nation's economic expansion. For the first time, Benin wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. And this wasn't charity. India benefited too. The collaboration gave India access to a steady stream of high-quality cotton for its vast textile industry, helping Indian exporters remain competitive globally. It also opened doors for Indian manufacturers, tech startups, and educational institutions in West Africa. That's how real partnerships work. Both sides win. Now, let's talk about how the U.S. reacted. Initially, Washington underestimated the shift. But as trade data rolled in showing India's growing footprint, policymakers began revisiting their strategies. Reports surfaced in U.S. media about India challenging Western dominance in Africa. Diplomats scrambled to strengthen ties, but by then, the trust gap was visible. African nations were asking hard questions. Why should we go back to the same old system when the Indian model is working? Even ordinary citizens noticed. Across African social media, posts comparing India's hands-on development projects with America's endless conferences and promises went viral. Memes joke that while the U.S. sends PowerPoint slides, India sends power generators. The world was changing, quietly, steadily, and India was leading that change in a way no one expected. Benin's transformation also inspired neighboring countries. Togo, Niger, and Burkina Faso began reaching out to Indian investors for similar collaborations. Regional blocs like ECOWAS started considering joint programs modeled after the India-Benin success. For Africa, this wasn't just about cotton anymore. It was about self-reliance. The continent was tired of exporting potential and importing regret. And India's rise offered proof that another path was possible. One farmer in northern Benin told a reporter, "We used to grow cotton for others. Now we grow it for ourselves and for India, our friends." That sense of pride is something no aid program can buy. By 2027, Benin's cotton production had reached record highs, exceeding 800,000 tons annually. The country became a regional hub for textile exports to Europe and Asia. Its "Made in Benin" label began appearing on clothing tags across markets in Dubai, Delhi, and Nairobi. Indian companies like Raymond and Irvin Textiles established joint ventures, employing local workers and training them in modern production techniques. The collaboration created thousands of skilled jobs and positioned Benin as a model for African industrialization. Meanwhile, the United States found itself asking a difficult question: had it misunderstood Africa all along? While it focused on aid and geopolitics, India had focused on empowerment and partnership and won hearts. As the years rolled on, the India-Benin alliance expanded beyond cotton. India helped build solar power plants, digital education centers, and agricultural research institutes. Benin began exporting not just cotton, but knowledge, hosting regional training programs funded jointly with India. This wasn't the story of a donor and a receiver. It was the story of equals building a new narrative for the global South. And make no mistake, the shock in Washington wasn't just about losing a market. It was about losing influence. The quiet realization that Africa was no longer a passive player, but an active architect of its future. As we come to the end of this incredible story, one thing becomes clear. India didn't help Benin just to score political points. It did it because both nations share something deeper: the belief that progress must be built, not borrowed. Benin's rise as Africa's leading cotton producer stands as a symbol of what collaboration can achieve when driven by trust and respect. And while the USA may still be watching in shock, one thing is undeniable: the world's balance of power in Africa is shifting, one partnership at a time. For millions of Africans and Indians alike, this partnership isn't just about cotton. It's about dignity, equality, and the shared dream of a better future led by the global South. And that's why stories like this matter, because they remind us that the real revolution doesn't always make noise. Sometimes, it grows quietly in the cotton fields of Benin. This is Iazicho Africa, bringing you the stories that reshape Africa's future. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep believing in the power of partnership.